Good morning. I'm Rose Bronstein, and I'm here with my wife, Rose. We're the co-founders of Buckets Over Bullying, a nonprofit initiative whose mission is to stop cyberbullying of children and teens through education, lawmaking, and legal action. Rose and I know firsthand about the profound, tragic consequences that can result when a report of cyberbullying is ignored. On January 13, 2022, our 15-year-old son, Nate, took his own life. He was bright, energetic, and had a great sense of humor. He had a large group of friends. He was loved by his two sisters, one older and one younger, as well as grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. He loved everything about sports, both playing and watching professional teams, and he was encyclopedic about sports trivia. He would dominate in any fantasy league he played in, and his favorite sport by far was basketball. Nate had reported to the dean as he was the target of cyberbullying by classmates. Despite the obligations that are imposed by our state's bullying policy, the Latin School of Chicago did not notify us and did not investigate our son's report that he was being cyberbullied. Rose and I had no idea that he was victimized, but the Latin School of Chicago did. Had they notified us, we would have known that he needed our support, our guidance, and our advocacy. Had Latin investigated, we'd have learned that before our son took his life, he was subjected to multiple attacks online, on Snapchat, in a text chain, and in a message that read, "Go kill yourself," sent via Snapchat. By ignoring Nate's report of cyberbullying and ignoring the law, the Latin School of Chicago denied us our right to be fully informed so we could protect our son. Their failure denied Rose and I the opportunity to prevent the tragic outcome that was his suicide. To this day, the Latin School has still never shared with us what they know. We only learned about these cyberbullying messages after his death and only from other Latin students. To this day, we are still trying to discover the full story, including through the lawsuit that we filed against Latin School of Chicago.
To be clear, the fact that Illinois parents need the help of lawyers to protect their children from bullying should be a wake-up call to our state legislators, and that the Illinois system for addressing bullying and cyberbullying is not working. The Illinois bullying policy is supposed to protect all school-age children when an incident of bullying is reported to the school. The law, which applies to Illinois public and private schools, requires that the school promptly notify all the parents of every student involved in the reported incident, promptly investigate the bullying, and keep parents informed of an investigation. The safeguards embedded in these requirements are obvious. They ensure that the adults who are entrusted to care for our children, their guardians, and their educators are empowered to step in to protect and advocate for these children, uncover the facts, take necessary action to stop the bullying, and address any improper conduct. Yet so many parents who have reached out to us for guidance are desperate and need help to protect their child from bullying. These parents have told us that their repeated reports to their school administrators and to the parents of bullies have simply been ignored. We have inherently become Illinois' bullying hotline. We want to thank Larry Disparti and the Disparti Law Group. We are grateful that they have joined our efforts to protect children from the profound and often tragic consequences of bullying and cyberbullying. Through their partnership with our foundation, Disparti Law Group will provide Illinois families with access to free legal services in the fight to stop bullying and cyberbullying. It's time to disrupt the status quo. Let's begin to publicly expose the dangerous behaviors of bullies and hold the adults who enable the bullying publicly accountable. Parents, we implore you to start educating yourselves on how dangerous social media is for our children. We urge you to then educate your own children about ethical behavior online and offline and what it means to be an upstander. These are life-saving conversations. And to the parents who continue to deflect, deny, and ignore reports about your own children's harmful online and offline behaviors, consider our message as a serious warning. You are responsible for your child's behavior. We are determined to protect victims, not bullies. And most importantly, we can give our children the support and protection they deserve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose, Rob. I want to say, thank you to you both for your courage and your bravery to continue speaking about this serious issue, sharing your story about Nate. I want to thank you for including myself to help in this. One of my hopes is that this partnership is going to provide legal resources for parents, for families that are affected with children who are being bullied. I think there's a huge need for more education, more insight as to how serious this issue really is for our youth. Like a lot of things, the law is slow to keep up with technology and society. We believe that we have enough, though, to hold families and schools accountable when they do not take action to stop the bullying. We feel confident that there's laws that maybe are not specifically for cyberbullying, laws such as federal civil rights laws that will apply in situations to hold parents accountable. My hope, and I know it's shared by Rob and Rose, is that my law firm never has to file a lawsuit against anyone, and that we, together through education and understanding, root out this problem, stop the cyberbullying, and no longer will need, as you've said, a lawyer. So in the coming months, my hope is my firm, we're going to provide resources for people, for families. We're going to have a launch of a new site, stopmybully.com, where we're going to provide free resources for families. You are free to call our office, and we're going to offer consultations to maybe help with some direction and steps that people can take. In conjunction with Buckets Over Bullying, who also provide great resources, and hopefully together we can put an end to the cyberbullying. Thank you. Stopmybully.com.
And I'm gathering that you anticipate potentially going after families and schools, is that correct?
Correct. It is my belief it starts with the families. I think the parents, there's a lot of different situations, such as, giving your 16-year-old car keys where they're responsible for the negligence of their children. I believe that we have avenues where cell phones are the same way, and that if they're not, the negligence caused by a cell phone, harm caused by a cell phone, we can hold parents accountable for that.
You mentioned there that you provided the resources and stuff for families. When they call, you mentioned initial consultation. I'm gathering that the initial consultation is pro bono. Is everything pro bono if that lawsuit doesn't get filed?
Yes. Well, if we have to file a lawsuit, if we are to get paid, it will be a contingency based on any recovery we get for the family. But there is no money we will charge any family for our help.
Condolences to you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your story. Why is this important to you specifically to help this family and the families that were unfortunately?
When I met Rob and Rose and heard their story, I'm a father of 3 young daughters, and they're not to the point where they have cell phones or technology yet, but if it could happen to a loving, caring family such as this, it could happen to any family. And so for me, is really as a father, really wanted me to get ahead of this and be part of this.
I do have a question, because you said when you were speaking there that you were aware of the extent of the messages that were being sent to your son. That was particularly horrific to find out what had been said to him after you were able to help him. Can you tell us a little bit about finding out how cruel kids and teenagers can be?
Charles, do you want to take it? So, can I get you
Yeah,
started?
come on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would tell you that aside from the actual date of our son's death, the second worst was when that became clear to us, which was several weeks later. Not just what was said, which was cruel and vicious and hateful, but the fact, or equally bad, maybe even worse, was the fact that the adults, the coach, the dean of students, the administrators knew about this, talked to us, gave their condolences, and didn't say a word. The whole time they knew, hoping that we wouldn't find out. We only found out because a mother of another boy at the school demanded a meeting with 4 administrators, put everything in front of them, which they apparently already had, but put everything in front of them and demanded that they do something. After 10 days passed and nothing happened, we didn't know her. She reached out to us and said, hey, I really want to meet with you and show you this. But yes, it was, I mean, devastating isn't a strong enough word, but that's what it was. And the cruelty and the callousness of people who purport to be about educating and protecting children, the fact that they thought only of themselves, the selfishness is something that we can never forget. And that's why, you know, look, I'll echo what was said, is that we hope that this can take care of it and a lawsuit doesn't need to be filed, but we have zero sympathy for people who purport to be principals or administrators or counselors at a school and think only of themselves. And by the way, it's not just the victim of the cyberbullying. They think about themselves, and when they don't discipline the bullies, it's like they just want to wash their hands of it and hope that it doesn't hurt their careers or the donations or the prestige of the school. It's something that obviously we can't change in our own situation, but the reason why we're doing all that we're doing and the reason why we are as excited about this partnership as we are is we know that people will start being held accountable, because that's the only way that it will change and it will stop.
How did that mother find out about the messages? How did she?
Her own son, who was not a participant but who knew about what had happened, showed it to her.
And I can add to that. And he had gone to her after the fact out of desperation because he was seeing that nobody was saying anything.
Yep.
Not a single child or adult had spoken up at the time when our son was being attacked to say, hey, Nate Bronstein is being hurt, we need to do something. Everybody stayed silent. And that's another issue that I see going on even till this day in society, that nobody is behaving like an upstander. Parents, school administrators, and of course children. They're seeing attacks, they're seeing suicide baiting, they're seeing kids' mental health decline, they're seeing kids being hurt, and nobody has the courage to stand up and say, there's a child in need, there's a child in crisis, there's a child that needs help, we need to do something. It's heads, eyes down. I'm sorry, heads down, eyes down. We're just going to stay away from it.
I have one more question, if that's okay. I don't have kids, but I do remember being a teenager and you to your family and you want your parents in your business. What do parents need to do to protect other kids and their own kids? Is it as simple as sitting down and having a conversation? Do they need to take the phones? Do they need to lock them? What do they need to do to make sure that no other family goes through this?
It's a multi-layer solution, the way we see it. First of all, it starts with education, which Rob and I are working on through Buckets Over Bullying. There's not enough or not any education at all in schools. Schools need to start to bring in curriculum about how to behave online, the consequences of bad behavior online, and how harmful social media can be. Parents in their homes, within their own families, need to start having these conversations with their children as well before they hand them digital devices. A digital device has now become a weapon of mass destruction. Just like the same idea when you hand a teenager the keys to a car, it comes with education, it comes with rules, it comes with if something goes wrong, who's held responsible? The parent. The same idea needs to be applied to digital devices. Parents are not having these conversations with their children at home. They're handing them cell phones with access to unmonitored social media, unregulated social media platforms, and stepping away and saying, I don't know what they're doing, I'm not paying attention. They just have a cell phone. In my mind, that is negligence, because there's a lot of harm being caused to our children among each other through the cell phone. And then in addition to that, it's when what we've experienced too, when a parent goes to another parent and says, your child is bullying or cyberbullying my child, you need to make it stop. The parents of the bullies have taken on this stance where they will deny it, they will ignore it, or they will claim that their child is an angel, their child has done nothing wrong, their child would never do that. That same child will lie to the parent, say, I didn't do anything. We experience that ourselves in our situation. And so these parents need to take a step back, need to reflect inward, and just not assume that when their own child is being accused of bullying or cyberbullying is not doing that act. They need to sit down with them, they need to look into their phone, they need to investigate it themselves, and they need to be open to admitting that their child could potentially be doing something that is harmful to another child. And that's where we see that Larry's group could come in and be of help.
So there's a couple questions from online. First question, they're not directed to anybody in particular. Can you speak to recent legislation in Illinois on bullying? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'll speak to that, sure. And look, we appreciate Margaret Croak and Kelly Cassidy, both from Chicago. I'm sorry? And Sarah Feigenholtz, thank you. We've had the opportunity to talk to all three of them and give input, and as I'm sure you know, that there's a piece of an amendment to a very outdated bullying policy that passed both houses and is waiting for the governor's signature. And it does several things that are helpful. The most significant being that it reduces the time frame that schools have to begin an investigation when they're informed of bullying or cyberbullying down to 24 hours. And I think it might be 10 days right now, which is a lifetime in practical terms. 24 hours they must notify parents of both the victim and the perpetrator and begin an investigation, not complete an investigation, but at least begin an investigation within 24 hours. It also forces school districts to publicize data about bullying and some other things. So we will, extend our thanks because it's a start. It's definitely a good start. With that said, there's a lot more that needs to be done. I would tell you that teenagers spend 5, 6, 7 hours a day online. And people talk about social media, but the reality is they also spend hours and hours gaming, which is social media too, because they're gaming in a format where they're communicating with each other. Aside from sleeping and maybe being in school, although a lot of times they're on their phones in much of the day in school, it's the thing that young people do the most of. And the amount of regulation, the amount of structure is woefully inadequate. The law that existed or does exist is, 6, 7, 8 years old. The speed at which the technology and the platforms and the way that people interact with each other, particularly young people, changes very, very, very fast. And so it is appropriate that it's being amended, and hopefully the governor will sign it. It was also incredibly frustrating that this bill faced opposition from school administrators who think they can wash their hands of it, and that's just not serious, and it's not based in reality. These young people know each other because they go to school together, and then they communicate 24/7. And what the school administrators would tell you is they're already strapped for resources, and now all of a sudden they're expected to govern the conduct of their students inside and outside of class? And the answer is yeah, they have to, because that's the way that these students interact and deal with one another. That's something that they're going to have to figure out.
The next question, I'm sure this is for Larry. What kind of legal tools are available now in Illinois to parents of bullied children?
Well, you know, as I said before, laws are slow to keep up with the fast pace of technology in society, but, you know, while there's not a lot of specific anti-bullying laws that we can pursue, I do believe that under theories of negligence, like I said before, civil rights laws, I believe that there's avenues for us to pursue parents, schools, and even school districts. At the very least, I also believe that our involvement in contacting the parents will shed some light maybe to a lot of parents to an issue that maybe they didn't know was going on with their child. So I do believe it's multi-layered, and I think the laws will get there. As Rob pointed out, you know, recent legislation that's been passed, it's moving in the right direction. But yeah.
Actually, you know, you just reminded me of something I want to add. We were really shocked to learn that a lot of the bullies in our son's situation did not find out about what happened until months later when they were contacted by our attorney. The students, the young people didn't tell their parents, they didn't tell each other, and the school had no interest in getting to the bottom of it, so they never contacted anyone. And what a lot of these parents have said, and I'll take them at their word, is had we known, we also would have liked to have done something. So, I mean, I think that there will be, I hope that there will be parents who will be contacted by Larry and his firm, who will, the parents of bullies, who will be grateful for the fact that before things got out of hand, they were brought in and able to course correct. And that's something that did not happen in our case. But so it's not only, I mean, again, I have no doubt, unfortunately, some will be defensive and deny, as Rose said, but I also believe that there are some who will be grateful for the fact that they had an opportunity to be notified and to intervene.
Just to clarify that point, you said that there were bullies in your son's case who didn't know what happened?
No, their parents didn't know. Their parents did not know.
There are some children who had attacked our son who did not tell their own parents about their behavior until after those parents were notified through legal recourse through us that something had happened.
Two more questions online. Any comment on the new Surgeon General report on social media?
I mean, it came out yesterday, but, and I'll make a more of a global comment. It's literally everywhere. My wife had an opportunity to attend a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, chaired, of course, by our Senator Dick Durbin, where he was not only held a hearing on the subject, but mentioned our son and his situation by name, and actually did again on the floor of the Senate. There's legislation that's been introduced federally. There's legislation that's being introduced across the country. There's cases that are being filed through all sorts of different avenues. And now you have the Surgeon General coming out with what he said. To rewind a few months, the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing was held on Valentine's Day, and a day or two before, there's a report on youth mental health that I believe the federal government issues once a decade, and it had come out a day or two before that hearing, and you can look that up. The data, and I don't want to misquote it, but suffice to say, it's devastating when you look at things like depression, suicide, suicidal ideation amongst teenagers. The numbers just get worse and worse and worse. What the Surgeon General, I believe, is positing, and I certainly think that there's a lot of correlation. You see the smartphone and social media come on the scene in about 2007, 2008, and you see every important statistic go in a really disturbing direction, and it's accelerating. So like literally every day you look in the news, and certainly the Surgeon General saying what he said is welcome and it's timely. I think that like a lot of things, it takes a while for society to catch on to just how detrimental something is, and then it really builds momentum. And good examples would be tobacco, for example, or now everywhere you turn, you see fentanyl. I think social media belongs in that category. There are certainly positive uses of it, but again, I said this a moment ago, what we have to recognize is that for young people, the time they spend online and the interactions they have on social media are as real, if not more real, than what they do in person. It's where they spend the majority of their time. And when you think about the regulations and just the safeguards that are in place, you ride a bike, a kid has to wear a helmet. You get in a car, you put on a seatbelt. And social media is the Wild West. And it's like, good luck, hope it works out. And I think people are waking up, and the Surgeon General is waking up to just how dangerous it actually is.
The last question is easy. They want information on Bucket's overbullying website, so why that?
Sure. It's bucketsoverbullying.org. And just real quick, we have several different things we're involved in. Advocacy for legislation, like I mentioned, legal action, this partnership being a great example. We're working with schools to bring education to parents and students on social media safety. We have now done our program in 5 schools in the Chicago area, with many more coming this fall. And then lastly, Buckets Over Bullying obviously being about basketball. We've done anti-bullying and social media safety rallies across Chicago. We have a partnership which we really appreciate with Chicago Public Schools. We recently did a series of rallies in Los Angeles. We've done them in Las Vegas, and we have quite a bit more planned for the future.
I have one more question. When you talked a little bit about it, can you kind of give us a little bit more of an idea of who he was and his personality? And you mentioned his sisters and basketball and took them dance leagues and other sports. Can you talk a little bit about him?
Give that to Rob because that's hard for me.
Sure. I mean, Nate was very, very smart. His mind and his mouth never stopped. I remember one time someone pulled up a Wikipedia page that had also, I don't remember what it was, like sports trivia from the 1960s. And somehow he knew, it was inconceivable how he could have known these things. Or my father, who's 80 and remembers baseball from the 1940s and 1950s, my son would know more sports trivia from that era than he did. It was inexplicable how he knew what he did. You know, he actually reminded me of myself as a student, which is his most important thing was racing to be done first and like slapping the paper on the teacher's desk, and he generally got good grades as well. And about a month or so after we lost him, we held an event for his friends at our home, and about, I don't know, 3 dozen or so kids attended, and they all, we didn't quite know what we should do, and it ended up actually being a really, really good event, but the woman who was helping us asked the boys to go, and there was a few girls too, to go around the room and to share a memory. And at first, they were, you know, shy and not comfortable, but toward the end, the mood had changed, and people were laughing and having fond memories. But the one thing that kept coming up over and over and over again, and it's one thing as parents, you can know a child, but I think their peers know them in a very different way. So just, you know, we certainly learned things and heard things that we didn't know, but the thing that kept coming up over and over and over again amongst his friends was how he was always sort of the source of energy, leading them on to this adventure or that adventure, always being sort of the life of the party, always the funniest, and they just told sort of one story or another at times that he had brought levity and made them laugh. So hopefully that helps to tell you a bit about who he was.